Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you are tuning into this podcast. We want to welcome you to the Two Young Pastors podcast. My name is Jajuan Sanders. I am joined by my friend, my brother, and my fellow pastor, Pastor Elijah Stanham. And we are Two Young Pastors. Hey, we in this podcast we talk about spirituality. We intertwine it and discuss how it really intersects with culture, and we want to give you as much value so that your Christian experience can be a blessing, so that it can be free, and so that it can be good. Sometimes you'll hear us rant, other times you'll hear us dive into real deep studies. And then there'll be times where we're just trying to process through things as we see maybe other individuals do things publicly that can ultimately have an impact on you if you're Christian, or on us as pastors. Pastor Stanley, Pastor Elijah Stanley, my friend. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. The Ravens won on Sunday. We were talking about that a bit before our podcast started. I got a chance to hold my friend's baby. He's like a month old now.
Wow.
Been seeing pictures of him, so it was great to kind of hold him and be like, "Yo, I'm your freaking uncle, bro." And then like talk to him. And,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So it was a great weekend. Still sad though. You know, it's kind of counted down about 3 more weeks now until Dot Peeler leaves. So yeah. Still kind of processing through that. So a lot of mixed emotions, but overall I'm good, man. Life's good. How about you, bro?
Dude, I am indeed going through the throes of course, being a new pastor of two new churches, right?
Yeah.
And when I say two new churches, new to me, all right, both these churches are over 50 years old. And so the reality is they've been around for some time, okay? Yet they're new to me. This past weekend, I had my second business meeting in 2 weeks, had my second communion in 2 weeks, okay?
It's a lot.
Um, because since I am pastoring two churches, I have communion for 1 week and have communion for the next church the next week. Same thing with business meeting. And so it's interesting getting to know two new churches. And yeah, I gotta say, at Metro it was easier. Okay, and what I mean by it was easier, I came into a system that was already well built.
Yeah.
Okay, well built, and well, extremely developed. And right now, even though I don't want to talk down or seem like I'm talking down my churches, yet I recognize that at my previous assignment, the church was just farther along. Okay, and I think it's okay to admit that some churches are farther along in their progression than other churches.
Right.
Um, and so I realized that I came into a church that was really developed, um, so much so that I didn't have much to build.
Yeah.
Where at my current churches, I'm seeing it. There are things that is like, oh man, we this is what we have to build. This is what we have to do, and I can see it. I can see it because I have been at a church that's a little bit larger, and so learning the people and
Yeah.
learning how to build a relationship with the people and journey with the people as I now try to impart some guidance as to how we can get from where we are, great churches, to even greater church,
Yeah.
um, is the challenge of this young pastor. And so I recognize it's going to take a lot of patience, going to take a lot of prayer, definitely going to take the Holy Spirit. But this is probably one of the most rewarding parts of pastoral ministry, helping to see people grow, helping to see churches grow.
Uh-huh.
And that is why I love to be a pastor. And so we're doing well. It seems like we're also going through growing pains still, because both of us are still in seasons of transition.
Yeah.
Um, but listen, folks, today we're continuing on our conversation that we started a couple episodes back on why we still choose Christianity. It's a question that many individuals, especially if you're a young adult, that you're faced with. Um, the question of, hey, should I still be Christian? And what does Christianity like really mean to me?
Yeah.
I think in the last episode we really identified that a number of individuals are no longer Christian um, because of the fact that they don't have the right story.
Yep.
Um, and so we recognize that that is impactful, but we also identify that when many individuals say that they're no longer Christian, what they really have been hurt by or really have been deterred by is the church, the institution. And so we wanted to follow up and really have a conversation on what we've seen in our experiences as to why individuals have left the church.
Yeah.
And pretty much because they've left the church, they've left their primary motives for engaging with Christian activity
Yeah.
and sometimes Christian people. And so, Elijah, I wanna start off by simply asking, what are some common reasons that you've heard, whether through personal experience or even online, as to why individuals have been leaving the church?
Man,
Uh,
for young adults specifically, I think there are certain individuals that only come to church because they want to meet someone, right? Um, and this is like coming out of left field, right? Because we kind of know the general ideas, right, of why individuals leave the church or they leave faith,
yeah,
or right, we know those, but there are more nuanced, right, reasons that some people might leave. And one of them that I found in my pastoral ministry has been some individuals are only attracted to church because of certain individuals, whether that's because they want to be in a relationship, right? So they're
yeah,
like, hey, I know where to find a good person is
yeah,
at church, right? So they engage in church because they're looking for that person. And whether they're disappointed with the people they find, or just because they had a string of bad relationships, I found that young adults specifically get disenchanted with church
mm,
because they are like, I'm supposed to find someone here and I'm not finding anyone. And then they kind of go through that motion then of saying, well, now I'm gonna open up my horizons, right?
yes,
And then they find someone that meets everything that they're looking for on the surface, right? And then also, some personal stuff that they have that are deep down. And then slowly but surely, right? What I've noticed is that it, church goes from a priority to one that then goes like down that list,
yeah,
and then now they're no longer engaging as much as they used to. And then I've seen that transition happen
yeah,
where it's I couldn't find a partner at church, so I found someone outside of church. And
yeah,
then because of that life decision, right, it's like a slow, gradual, what's it called? It's like there's no word for it that I can think of right now, but it's like a slow goodbye. And
yeah.
then it's like, oh,
When you going ghost, you
yeah,
ghost.
yeah, yeah. They basically ghost because they're like, well, there's no reason. It's like, oh, you know what? I haven't been in church in 10 years,
Yeah,
right? It like switches like that because of life choices that people have made, and
yeah,
and 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 that just happens through life. So that's one like maybe not so documented in the data of why some people leave the church. How about you,
so,
man?
dude, and as you were speaking, and because I had this in my mind anyway, and you really gave an example of it. I think people leave the church because the church ceases to have value or to add value in our lives. When you brought about the point of someone trying to find their significant other, um, church is therefore a vehicle for you
Mhm,
to immediately add value into your life. You can find someone who can be a compatible potential spouse, lifelong partner. That is something valuable, right? Church, I think a lot of times we're sold on how God can make our lives better,
mhm,
how being Christian, makes our situations better and things like that. And I think
mhm,
that, truth be told, to a certain extent, individuals feel as though some individuals think that the church experience, the Christian experience, that it is an inconvenience more than it is a
Wow.
blessing, you know. And I'm not even like speaking to the easy things that Christians always say. Oh well, individuals don't want to change, they don't want to grow, they just want to continue to live in sin. I'm not even just talking about that. But like, if I'm talking about from a practical standpoint, being a pastor, you know, church should teach you how to become more patient. If we
Hmm.
say like if our goal is to become more like Christ, to become more like love, then naturally we should begin to emulate the characteristics that are found in love,
Hmm.
patience,
Hmm.
kindness,
Hmm.
grace, long sufferingness, right? Like individuals should be taught in church how to develop these characteristics, how to
Right.
develop these skills. And I believe, Elijah, I believe that if the pastors, if the elders, if other leadership are intentional about pouring into people and showing them how they can grow, then they will stay. Yet, what I think is happening in a number of churches today is that individuals are not being given enough content. They're not being put in enough spaces that can actually inspire them to grow and then challenge them, motivate them to indeed experience that growth that is supposed to come along with being a believer.
Hmm.
And so I think that to your point, when you are not adding value to someone's life, they cease to see the relevance that you have in their life. And so I think that's the same way with uh, podcasts or channels that we watch. We stop watching shows because it ceases to entertain us, because the show is supposed to entertain us.
Hmm.
We stop listening to the growth podcast because it's no longer helping us to grow.
Yeah.
And so I think that, if we as a church want to indeed do better about maintaining people, we have to figure out um, how can we indeed try to add value to individuals' lives once
That's good.
again.
That's
You
good.
know,
That's good.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Cause like I find myself exactly like you said, like leaving or like unsubscribing to things that no longer bring value or it costs too much,
Yeah,
right? So just like, well, these are my priorities right now, and this isn't what I'm looking for right now.
yeah.
So I end my consumer relationship with them, right?
That's an interesting word when you say consumer.
I do because this is my second reason that people leave church,
Okay,
is they're consumer minded.
okay.
Um, like the value that you were saying is very different from the value that a consumer is looking for, right? So you're
Yeah.
so like we're talking about value that church adds. It's really, hey, I'm going through this thing right now in my life and I need guidance on how to work through it. So whether it's, hey, I feel like God is not answering my prayers right now, right? Hey, what do we as a church, what do we as the pastors, as the leaders, are we able to guide that individual through their life situation and the gray areas in life, and even in the areas that are clear, right? It's like, hey, where and how is my community helping me in
Mm,
that process, right? That's value that everyone should be looking for, right? With things that they are associated with. But there are other values that consumers look for. Like when I go to Target or if I go to Costco, right? Like I'm getting a bunch of these like reels where it's like, hey, if you know what these numbers mean, right? Or if there's like this little what's it called? This little there's like the sign of death on a product, right? It's like,
mhm.
hey, right?
The skull and bones? Are you talking about that?
Huh?
Are you talking about the skull and bones? That
No,
sign of
no, no, like they have like an asterisk, right? That goes next um to the price of a item in Costco, right?
okay.
And that's called like the mark of death because you'll
Really?
never have that product again. This is the last time that Costco is gonna have that product, right?
Whoa,
So the
whoa. That's how you
yeah,
know. That's how you know I don't go to Costco. Like, yeah.
it's fine, man. Because it's consumer minded, right? Where people are like, hey, these are the best things that you're able to get, right? But if you enter into that mindset
yeah,
to your faith and your Christianity, then it goes from, are you being entertained, right? Are you like, hey, am I able to receive? So you're consuming it. But a part of church that is, I think, increasingly uncomfortable with people is that a part of church is producing as well. So it's this two-way road where at times you will be consuming more than you are producing. But when individuals are asked to, hey, like prime example, man, I'll ask young adults, right? I'm like, hey, you've been here 6 months, a year, right? We love that you're here, but now it's time to go from guest into disciple, right? So
yeah,
not even membership, right? From guest into, now we need your hands and your feet to now produce something in the space that you are benefiting from.
yeah,
And and that conversation tends to kind of not always make people leave the church, but the people that do leave a church and then probably move on to another one and another one and another
yeah,
one and another one is because they're approaching church with the mindset of entering into Target, and they're like, hey, I don't see what I like and what I want, so I'm going to go to the next store and see if I can get exactly what I want. And if you enter into that mindset as a Christian, it's
yeah,
going to be so much easier for you to leave the church at large,
yeah,
because you're like, well, I'm not, church is not hitting my dopamine receptors, right? The way that I needed to. So that means this faith and this religion no longer meets what I want because I don't feel like the exact same way like how it did before, and you
yeah,
end up leaving. So it's more of a consumer choice than
yeah,
a spiritual choice.
yeah. I have a question though. You know, when you say transition from being a consumer, right? Do you think it is wrong to have a consumer mindset when it comes to church?
Not inherently, not inherently. And here's what I'm saying: not inherently. I'm defining a consumer mindset as as someone that is looking for the best deal, right? So you're looking for the best deal. I don't think having that mindset is bad, because there are parents that are looking at churches and they have to pick a church to go to. They're like, hey, what church offers kid or children programming so that my children can be engaged at church, right? I like that is a mindful decision to make. Like, I know individuals right now, they're like, hey, I can't really come to Capitol Hill right now because my children are too loud. And I go to this church instead because they have children crying every time, right? And no one minds it.
Yeah,
So it's just like, hey, I understand that. Like, you want to have a space where your children are able to feel comfortable and grow and da da da, right? So if that's the way you're approaching something, I think it's fine. But if you're approaching church as a um as it has to be this preacher that's preaching on this topic, and this worship leader has to be singing, and they have to just be this song and da 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 da, as if it's a restaurant that you can cater to and be like, I'll have this, but I want to then substitute this for this, right?
yeah,
That's that consumer mindset that I think
yeah.
will lead them to leave the church.
Here's what I think though. I think that to a certain extent, I think the church has kind of sort of created its own enemy, though.
Mm.
Um,
Explain that. Yeah, yeah. What?
like, I think naturally we have various demographics who got brought into the churches at different times, right? Like, for instance, let's say the Adventist church, uh, how baby boomers interacted with church, and I would say even some silent generation, if they're still alive, it is rather different from how Gen Xers, Millennials, Gen Alpha, and or
Mm.
Gen Z and Gen Alpha relate to church. Like, I think that from our baby boomers and up, they're more conservative. And when I say conservative, um, even though we are Christian, right, and we believe that Christ has saved us, right, we've been saved by grace through faith, right. Um, they were still taught a theology, instilled in a theology that was extremely works based. Okay. And so because it was works based, I think that hyper focus on your behavior and on your actions, it caused this demographic within the Adventist church to become the religious police, right?
Mm.
Or the behavior police, where they were focused on correcting and telling individuals, whether in the faith or outside the faith, how they're supposed to be living, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that this kind of sort of produces a generation that that did not want that same closeness with the church and the Gen Xers. And
Mm-hmm.
so you see a whole lot of Gen Xers because their parents forced them to go to church, and because like it wasn't because they had good reasons, but just because, hey, I told you to, I'm your parent, you got to listen to what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And then when they got to church, they were hearing a whole lot of fear mongering and how the Lord's going to come back, and if you're not ready, you're going to go to hell and stuff like that. It turned a lot of people off. And so there are individuals who were Gen Xers who ended up leaving the church when they got grown. But here's the thing, they never understood church outside of essentially a rule book zone, right? They never had the opportunity to truly become disciples of a movement. They just learned how to follow the rules of the religion.
Yep. Yep.
And so and from my understanding, they have more relationship with the quote unquote institution and the rules of the institution, rather than actually building deep bonds with Jesus and
Mm-hmm.
his people. And because of that, they left, but came back because they had kids.
That's it. That's it.
And so, because you had individuals who were probably kids who were not necessarily interacting and being involved in church, they were just used to going to church.
Yep.
When they finally came back around to attending church, right? Like their whole understanding of church is, I just got to come here. Like, and I'm coming here because not because I've seen the benefit for me necessarily, but I just want to make sure that my kids are raised knowing Christ. And there's a difference. There's a difference. And so you have a bunch of adults who are parents, Gen Xers, who do not have the best understanding of
Mm.
of, of who God is, what the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of church is, and how they're supposed to fit into church. They just know, hey, I was raised, you go to church on Saturdays, and if you're not Adventist, most likely on Sundays, right? And that's what I know to do, and so that's what I'm getting my children involved in. And I want to make sure that to a certain extent, my children have a better experience than me. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of that, if they got children's church or if they got a children's program, like I want to make sure that my kids are in that because I want my
Right.
kids to have better experience than
Right.
I've had growing up in this faith. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that like naturally it has created this unfortunate situation where we have older individuals who were so staunch in their beliefs, and so judgmental and critical in how they handled their theology and their people, that it produced a next generation who really wanted to do the bare minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because their parents didn't teach them the right way. And
Mm.
so now we kind of sort of have the system where some Gen Xers are correcting what their parents um, initiated with
Mm-hmm.
their kids, but many of them still just have an understanding of, hey, as long as I'm here, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it seems like we unintentionally created this consumer beast because for them it's like, well, at least let me go to a church that feels good to me. It's not let me go to a church where I can accomplish God's mission
Right.
uh, in my life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's let me go to a church service that at least feels good.
That I won't fall asleep in because I have to be at church. So let me go to a
Yes,
church that I'll be awake in.
because growing up, what they associate with church is it's this place I don't want to be. It's boring. I don't really understand the preaching because it's not for kids
Yeah.
for real. It's not for kids or for teens really. And so, but when you become an adult, your parents are on you. They're like, when you gonna come back to church? When you gonna come back to church? And so
Yeah.
you finally come back to church. And so you're like, let me just find a church that actually like makes sense or that actually looks good and sounds good.
Mhm.
Because once you leave the church, you're naturally going to pick up new ideologies and new
Yep.
beliefs.
Yep.
Like, and some of these ideologies and some beliefs might contradict what the church says.
Mhm.
And so you try to find a church that like meshes the two worlds that you've probably learned up until this point while being considerate of kids. And so I think that we have unintentionally created our own problem.
Yep.
We created consumer culture within our church
Really
because
interesting.
of because of the broken system, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
No, man, because like that goes into what I was thinking as you were saying. I was like, we have built a a population, I guess, that is so connected to the rules and the regulations that when an individual in prominent leadership breaks those rules, right? Like for individuals that I've spoken to, it's just like, well, if they can't keep it, right? They've been preaching and teaching and
Yeah,
doing all this other stuff. It's like, what hope do I have?
yeah,
And not even that, but I think the other side of that is, wait, they've been sleeping with that person this entire time while they were preaching about this. So it kind of that hypocrisy, right, discredits
yeah,
everything that they
yeah,
preached about, the word, like it really much discredits the entire institution. So if you've been building up your your entire relationship, not with Jesus, right, but with the institution, the
yeah.
moment someone that is a prominent leader that you've like connected with, right,
Absolutely.
shows watch it shows their humanity, right? Not even that they're a hypocrite. They show their humanity that they're imperfect,
Right.
right? You immediately lose the trust that you've been building and your bonds are broken because you're just like,
Yeah,
what's gonna happen? And then you immediately leave because you're like, I don't find anything because you have not been building your relationship with Jesus, who he himself says, right, not to look at the people around you, but to focus your eyes on him
yeah,
because people will let you down. So for me, man, like what you said, it's like almost like a domino effect where
yeah,
you kind of like set everything up, and then once one goes down, it just kind of hits all the entire row until everything falls apart. So it's like that hypocrisy, that hypocrisy. Um, and if I'm being honest with you, man,
yeah.
that feeling has never hit me.
What feeling?
Like when there's like a not a scam, but
A
a,
scandal?
a scandal. Yeah, like when a scandal erupts, right? And then they're like, I can't believe that they did this and they were with this person the entire time, or like they said this and actually don't believe in this and da 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 da, right? For me,
Yeah,
like I see how it hits some individuals, and it's just like I don't know how I'm gonna make it to tomorrow. Like I just had like I see like this like passionate cry for help where they're like, I need
mm,
assistance in making through it. I have
yeah,
never had that experience
yeah,
where I'm like, I've put so much into one person that when they go down, my faith is challenged. Like I've never had that experience yet.
And I think it's good. You probably won't have that experience if you haven't had it up to this point. But I think it's very like one. I think your cultural background impacts a lot of it, right?
Mhm.
Like I came from a dysfunctional household, right? So like my background is dysfunctional. So when I see dysfunction in the church, I'm just like, oh, home part two, But like if you probably came in under if you probably came in under the understanding that church is the place where healthy people are,
Mhm.
right? Where individuals are not doing things that could cause harm to other people, and then you're the person who probably has had the most profound impact on your spiritual journey is probably doing. You probably catch that individual doing something contrary to what they have been preaching against.
Yeah.
It can be like groundbreaking. It could be
Mhm.
ground shifting. Like and so I can see how that can really stir individuals away, which kind of sort of gets into like the next topic that or the next thing that really came up. Lots of people leave the church because of terrible experiences, like like like
Yeah. Yeah.
scandals
Yeah.
are a turn off. Scandals are a turn off, especially when it happens to people people that you're related to.
Yep. Yep.
And the truth is this: no one is safe. No one is safe because unfortunately, you think that it's just messy people, messy lay members. No, sometimes
No.
it be your own pastor.
Yep.
Sometimes it be your own pastor.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
truth. Like I remember it was a pastor. Facebook is a crazy place. Recently, this pastor was like, you got one band member, and it's always the band members, right? And you got to watch out, especially for those basses, because those basses are really smooth, right? Um, but the pastor was like, problem is you got a drummer who's seeing 7 women at the church at the same time,
I saw that.
and then he took it to the next level, and he was just like, but the 7 women don't know that he really interested in the deacons, and I was like,
Crazy. Crazy.
no. And so yes, we various scandals hit the church, like, and it causes you to lose credibility. In
Mhm.
the same way that, like, if Apple, if Apple put out their AirPods, right, and their AirPods kept short circuiting.
I
Matter
think
of
you're
fact,
connected to the air. You brought them close by, and your
yeah.
voice got louder. I'm not sure if you're still connected to those, by the way.
Oh shoot, can you hear me?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Okay,
Okay.
so like, what ended up happening is that, like, if Apple, for some odd reason, if they produce like some headphones, which for some odd reason, after extended use, they start catching on fire,
Yeah.
that will hurt the credibility
100%.
of the company.
Yeah.
And so naturally, if we're preaching, right, that if when you're in Christ, you become a new creature. All things are passed away, and behold, all things are
Mhm.
new.
That's right. Yeah.
And the pastor is sleeping around with members of his church after the pastor done scolded the church about infidelity and about this and that. And you find out that the man who was scolded and rebuking the congregation is himself sleeping with his parishioners,
Caught up.
cheating on his wife.
Yep.
It causes the church to lose credibility.
Mhm.
It causes the church and the people within the church, the leadership, to lose credibility. Like,
Yeah.
everyone knows that pastors are not perfect,
Mhm.
right? Everyone knows this. Yet the reality is that there are certain issues that you don't just stumble into. Like, you can stumble into a lie to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Like, lies are very easy. you can't stumble into money laundering. You 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 you
It
can't
just
stumble
happened.
like you can't stumble into someone's bed like, oh no,
Yeah. Oops. Yeah. There's
panties.
no.
Like it doesn't happen. Like it's a choice. It's a choice, deliberate choice. And there are many choices that you have to make up to that point. Like you don't just stumble into a bed. Like
No.
you got to walk into said location with
The
that person,
house. You have to
or
walk.
knowing that that person is going to be there. Like
Yep.
now you got to text the person or call the person to agree to be there at said time.
Yep.
Then you got to enter into whatever room that it's in.
Jajuan, you're giving a play-by-play right now, man.
Like I'm letting individuals know how many choices you gotta make,
Yeah.
right? And then you gotta look that person in the eye and give them the look like, hey, I'm ready. If you're that's a lot of decisions that you're making.
A lot of decisions. Yeah.
And so like the reality is, bro, number of individuals have understandably left the church, and because the scandals kind of sort of go to speak to a large issue. Like the at times Christianity will sell you on promises and sell you on hopes. And the reality is that when individuals have like these moral falls, what it does is it immediately undercuts
Hmm.
the vision and the hope that individuals were sold on.
Yeah.
And so to your point, individuals are like, oh man, so if pastor did this, then maybe this Christian lifestyle it really ain't really all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
Maybe God really ain't good. Like,
Hmm.
is this the reason why I've been praying for years and I'm still broke? Is this the reason why I've been praying for years and my son's still depressed or my daughter's still,
Hmm.
like uh, an alcoholic? I've been praying for years and my child still has schizophrenia. God,
Mm.
I thought that if I prayed and asked, I would receive.
Yeah.
Like overselling on things that you cannot deliver on. And so that's it. That's what I
That's
want to say.
good.
I talked
That's
for a
good.
long time.
That's good. No, man. Because like I'm gonna shift it a bit, and this is my last one that I thought about. Was especially right now in our current context, man. Um, when churches become too political, and here's what I mean. Right?
Mm,
It's both right and left because I've seen it happen in both instances, right?
yeah,
When churches become co-opted by a political message. And the reason that I'm saying that is because what tends to happen sometimes, and I've heard stories from, our friends out in the field, right? A conference in their workers meeting can be saying political points from a political candidate, right?
yeah,
In their workers meeting to make points on theological issues.
yeah,
So when that is happening, pastors tend to leave, right? Because like, hey, I don't support that political view, so I'm going to leave the church because it looks like the church is supporting this. And as individuals are hearing this, I don't want you to think just right. It's also left as well, right? So it's this both sides where sometimes the individual might be attending a church and then they hear right either a very pointed message or they hear something like there was an instance right where in in Sabbath school someone played a very overt political video right instead of teaching the Sabbath school lesson right uh a- as a guest you're just like I'm never going to come back here again because instead of teaching the word of God, you're showing me this conspiracy theory video. So
conspiracy theory.
and you can put that in both sides of the spectrum, right? And then say, well, if church is going to take up this political stance on this issue, then I'm not going to be attending anymore. So it's not just attendance.
I got a question for you
Mhm.
while you're there. Let's say you have a church, you're blessed to have members who are running for a particular office.
Yeah.
And let's say they like they're on, like they're not independent. Like let's say they're a Republican or let's say they're Democrat,
Mhm.
right? Um, because I've seen churches, acknowledge certain members who's running for a council member or who's
Yep,
running
yep.
for whatever. What do you think the church's ability or capacity to kind of sort of hold space for certain members in that position? What do you think that should look like?
It should not be happening. And here's why I say that. It goes back to what is the point of church? And we're talking about worship, right? And we're talking about how if the main idea of worship is is focused and centered around God, right? And the liturgy is put together in a very specific order so that we're able to have a uninterrupted, right, time in the presence of God. For me, like my views on it, and I've
Yeah,
and it's also used at Capitol Hill as well. Is there is no room in in worship, right, to highlight individuals that might be running. Now, there's a difference, right, in allowing them and saying, "Hey, hey, sister or brother, da 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 da, is gonna be running this year, da da da." Right? We want to pray that God will use you in this next season, and then you continue on with your announcements. Right? That's a very different thing from coming up on stage, inviting them up on stage, right? And then allowing them to speak and share a very political view because the church is not a campaign ground, right? Politicians want to turn it into one,
yeah,
like a very real world thing, right? We had some of the Adventists that was running for the Senate here in Maryland, right? And he had he came to Capitol Hill, right? And he wanted to have a chance to speak to the congregation. And I looked at Dr. I was like, "Hey, Doc, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "No, like you can't you can't walk into a church and then expect just because you are the same denomination as them to
well,
then
he's not even a member.
not
He didn't
not a
even he
member.
didn't he didn't even like he didn't talk to y'all beforehand. He just wow.
But even if he talked to us beforehand, the answer would have been no. Like this
I'm
is
happy that I'm happy to hear that it would have been no.
yeah.
I'm just also kind of sort of like, man, like that's interesting.
So again, like that's why some individuals are so disinterested in church is because it goes from a place of focusing on God and worshiping Him to one that is transformed into a social club, right? Where you can then use and garner a place where individuals are gathering for personal benefit and gain, which is
Mhm.
why we ordain an elder this Sabbath, right? And in First Peter, right, it almost has a way of saying don't do this, where it's like, hey, you are entering into this office and into this role of church, not for personal gain and
Yeah,
not for your own prosperity. So then you're just like, oh, that kind of helps fill in the blank a little bit of
yeah,
is this only for my personal gain? Then maybe I shouldn't be having that in my worship service, right?
mhm,
And the individuals that do make that choice to have it, I can 100%, man. I know of individuals that have left multiple churches because they're just too overtly political on everything, and they get disenfranchised, and then they leave.
mhm,
Again, not just right, but also left. It's kind of like across the spectrum.
mhm. It's a difficult topic for me as a black man,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I think like growing up, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I've seen it done tastefully, where they were just like, "Hey, this brother is running for this. Let's keep him prayed as he's making that decision." I don't think I've ever really seen it in a church service where individuals have brought them up on stage and all that stuff. Um, but I've seen acknowledgments. I've seen individuals at times who honored, like, hey, this is our district representative. We
Hmm.
just want to pray over you. We just want to cover
Right.
you.
And
you
that's
know,
fine. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
you know, and so yes, I think that that's and so I think I have a nuance. Like
But if you're only doing that for a Democrat and not for a Republican when they come into church, right? That's where I found the issue is make it consistent. Even if
you know,
I personally might not agree with their politics,
it's crazy.
right? It has to be consistent. So if you're acknowledging a mayor, right, of the city that was in church, if the next mayor comes in, right, that you might not have voted for, keep it consistent or don't do it at all.
Ooh. What if you don't agree with their politics or their morals? Should you like is it like are you doing it because you support the person or are you doing it because you support like the morals behind what they're
It's the
doing?
office.
I don't know if individuals necessarily bring people in just because of the office. I think individuals bring people in also because of what they intend to do with said office. You
Right.
know?
Right. So when pastors invite them to come in, right, they have a specific idea of that person, right? I'm
Yeah.
saying, m- I'm saying if if we as a church are going to acknowledge, right, a political leader, right, when they're in church, right, do it to any political leader that might be in church. And
Well,
the exact same way that you said, "Hey, this is the mayor of da 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 da. We just want to keep them in prayer," right? Simple.
okay.
Didn't support the
That point, yeah.
acknowledgement, didn't support their policies, didn't support this, didn't support that. It's like, hey, this person is here. They're a prominent individual in the community. Let's hold them in prayer. And they
You see.
could take that in any other way, but it's just, hey, keep it consistent so that
Okay.
your church is not taking a political stance.
And then thereby it's not becoming too political. I love
Right,
that.
right,
I love that. I love
right.
that.
But it in your preaching, right, call out sin where sin is. So if 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 it is in the political arena, as pastors, we have a duty to call it out, right?
Mhm.
So don't don't be someone that only filters it in one area and not in the other, but keep it consistent like Christ would. And especially in today's context, man, I feel like that is really important because right now our identity as Christians is being co-opted, right, by the Republican Party, and because of that, it makes our job harder to preach the gospel because now in this current climate in 2025, right, when we say Christian, you're automatically assumed to be a Republican, um, and that is unfortunate that we've allowed the church capital C to be co-opted into a political movement,
Yeah.
whether you agree with the politics or not.
I tend to agree. I definitely tend to agree. And I think that that's really where individuals have to kind of sort of really do their own soul searching
Mhm.
uh, for themselves. And I think the reality is you have to do soul searching for each of these. If you left the church, um, understood, right? All reasons for leaving the church are valid. Even if like we may have an issue
Yeah.
with it, um, you know, it's valid. I think we may attempt to push back on certain things.
Mhm.
If you just left the church because you were bored, that may be something that we would push back on and say and try
Right.
to challenge you on. Yet, every person has the right to their
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is what we're really getting at. Yet, we wanted to kind of sort of uh, have a discussion and probably help some individuals feel seen today as to why they possibly took a step back and retired, parlayed for some time
Mhm.
from church. Yet, in the midst of this, we even in the midst of all these things that we identified and saying that yes, it's valid. Um, we are still pastors, and we still believe in it. And so
Yeah.
I think that we identified what the issues are. And I think what we need to do is identify what a solution to some
Mhm.
of these issues that we brought up can be. Because we don't want to leave it. We're just saying, oh yeah, here are the reasons why you should leave the church, right? No, this is us saying we acknowledge why individuals have left the church based on
Right.
the myriad of reasons, right?
Mhm.
Yet we believe that belonging to a church is crucial
Crucial.
for any believer's development and growth. And so next time we like to talk to you on why you should stay, why you really should stay, despite the various things that can come up, and how you can stay, how to navigate the field,
Those, yeah.
so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls that some individuals have fallen in or are probably still falling into this day. So
Mhm.
remember, um, like, share, subscribe to the podcast on whatever
Yes.
platform that you are listening to. We want to hear from you. If you have thoughts, if you have other reasons that you think individuals are leaving the church that we have not necessarily touched on, please put in the chat. And if you are an individual who left the church and probably came back, help us to learn what brought you back in,
What brought you
what
back?
won
Yeah.
you back to God and to His church. Let us know so that we can indeed further the conversation. But once again, thank you so much for listening to the Two Young Pastors podcast. I'm Jajuan Sanders, and this is my friend, my fellow pastor, Elijah Stanley, and we look to see you next time.
All right, y'all.
Good day.
See ya.